Hey everyone, welcome to another Touchcraft podcast. Today we have a special episode. We're recording this after the Token 2049 event. Basically, the agenda for this particular episode is kind of going into different insights and takeaways from the event. What happens on CT is so different from what's actually happening in the industry, and sometimes kind of figuring out that signal from noise can be really hard. So we brought on some guests. Rachit also was at the event, and we brought some other guests on this part to kind of go into different verticals, different sectors in the space, and understand what's actually happening and kind of share some alpha with you guys. So, Waj and Raghav, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having us.
KJ. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I think, first of all, before we get into the event and what happened, why don't you guys give a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. My name is Waj. I'm building a protocol called IVX. It's live on Chain. I've also been doing a lot of education for a long time, and so some of you may have seen some of the videos and threads that I've been putting out over the last few years. But yeah, that's a small intro about me. I'm interested to hear about Raghav as well. It's the first time as it's the first time we've met as well.
Nice to meet you, Raj. Hey, everyone. Raghav this side. I'm part of the investment and research team at Longhash Ventures. Longhash is a Singapore-based VC and accelerator. We've been in the space since 2018, backing founders at pre-seed, seed stages, and also incubating projects across different ecosystems. And yeah, I've been with the team for almost 3 years now. I come with a background in TradFi. I used to work with Fidelity and D. Shaw, prior to joining Web3. And yeah, excited to be here. Been friends with Rajat for some time now. I think we joined the industry right around the same time. Excited to be here.
Yeah,
Awesome.
KG, fun fact. People actually think me and Raghav are brothers because we have the same last name. And
Bro,
I've been cloud farming that for so long. I'm like, yeah, I'm Raghav's little brother.
there,
It works
I
every
see.
time.
So I see like 10 Agarwals on my timeline every day. So everyone is your cousin or second cousin or whatever. So it's kind of crazy. Always think it's somebody you're related to you. All right. I think the first kind of my question to you all is what was the experience like for you guys? You have been going to Token 2049 for many years, and it's like one of the biggest events in crypto. What is your experience this year compared to previous years? Just from like someone from the sidelines, just seeing on CT, the energy kind of felt different this year from last year. So, what was the vibes like? What was the energy like during the event? What do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'd say I think one thing that I noticed specifically this year compared to last year was that I think that we kind of flushed out a lot of the kind of maybe lower quality projects. And I noticed in general of the audience that were there, a lot of the people there were more sophisticated, definitely have a lot of experience with using things on chain, and have been building for a long time as well. So I definitely noticed that shift where the quality of conversations that I had were very high quality across the board. And I liked it. I think it made like the room generally smarter. You could have better conversations with people, and yeah, I'd say that was one of the main things that I noticed, like last year, especially compared to this year.
Yeah, I think I
Raghav?
can. Yeah, I think I have similar feelings. So first of all, I mean, this year was definitely better in the sense that there was no storm, there was no flooding. Last year, I remember I when I landed in Dubai, it was right during middle of that storm, and then I couldn't reach my hotel that night. So it was like the first 2 days were extremely challenging last year. So this year it was definitely better, but the heat was a vibe killer, so to say, but your insights most of the times. In terms of the sentiment overall, yes, I do feel like last year when I was at Token, the conversations were around RWAs and BTC ecosystem, which was just, very nascent stage. This time around, the conversations around the Bitcoin ecosystem RWAs were significantly more mature. The projects have, made a lot of progress in that aspect. I think the most talked about, project last time was the Bearer Chain Yacht Party, and that was like the whole conversation. I think this time around, as Watch mentioned, a lot of conversation was more focused on, revenue or PMF, and there's a lot of focus on, we need to build sustainable businesses, there were more people attending from institutions. There were a lot of, in fact, Web2 VCs that I ran into who were just curious to understand about the industry. So I think overall there was a progress in the sense that people were more concerned about PMF and revenue and actual application and actual end users rather than just a narrative or rather than a vision that how this will turn out to be.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I
And Rachit,
think both of that. Yeah, no, I think both of
from
that echoes really perfectly. What I felt was, last year when we went to Token, it was like the market was just about to rip, and we were in like this valley of hope type scenario where everyone was bullish. This
Yeah.
time we were at the opposite side of the curve where it had topped and then it was coming down, and then everyone was like, okay, where does it go from here? And then you had all this sort of FUD on the timeline, and then everyone just had like a couple of talking points where like I talked about that whole situation with about 10 different people. And like with that value of uncertainty plus all the FUD on the timeline, people were generally bearish. Another thing that I noticed from like a marketing standpoint, last year projects had a lot more money to play with in terms of like marketing spend and doing activations. This time it was very conservative, and which is why like a lot of people were talking about private dinners, a lot of people were talking about like one-on-ones on the timeline, because there were no parties. Like there was just one party. Okay, so KG, like at the start of the week there was this party sort of rumor that Travis Scott was going to perform, and then that never happened. So like stuff like that, like there was just one party that was like big, that was rumored, that didn't happen. So those are the shifts that I thought from last year this year
do you
happened.
think okay, so my question to you on that would be, don't you think that projects have kind of experimented spending large budgets on these different things? They didn't really see an ROI on that. And this year they kind of allocating that money to different things that are more niche and more effective rather than they don't have money because we've just been through a huge bull cycle. Don't you think they're just preserving capital because they don't want to spend money on these lavish parties?
I think if I may take a stab at that, one, like my personal observation is, regardless of how much money you're spending on marketing activation, the money has to be spent on the right kind of audience. The challenge with a lot of Web3 conferences, it's kind of the same people. And if you are marketing a Web3 application to someone like you, me, Rachit, or Vaj, or everyone here, we are spending quite a lot of our time on Twitter exploring different applications, so we are very well aware. So those marketing dollars actually do not translate into actual revenue for those projects. So this time around, and Rachit knows this, I had invited a Web2 friend of mine to go around, and I had signed up him for a bunch of conferences, side events. And I remember he was talking to this decentralized cloud storage platform which had a booth at a side event, and he got so intrigued, he spent like half an hour just trying to understand what is decentralized cloud, how can this be cheaper than AWS, what are the reliability issues, what kind of challenges will it take for, and he works for an AI healthcare startup. And he was very keen to understand, what kind of journey will it be if they have to migrate from AWS to something like this. Now, if you keep, kind of spending your marketing dollars on the existing Web3 ecosystem, that's not going to translate into actual revenue. So I think what needs to change is not the marketing budget, but more like how we can bring in more non Web3 users into the space and talk about it. I think the one easiest way that I see is having conferences or events right next to a bigger Web2 kind of event happening. So if Nvidia is hosting like a conference in the US, then we should have side events around that, so that and invite some of the folks from the traditional tech industry to come and experiment with what we are building. And that's also a good way to get a lot of feedback from the Web2 folks as to what's not working right now.
Yeah. KG, like back at Scribe, I used to always say that booths are a waste of time and no one should do them. I actually spent like 8 hours at the wormhole booth. And I think that was like the most productive use of my time, because I was at a dedicated spot. I had tweeted out like this is where I'm at. And I met at least 6 people every 10 minutes. And people just coming up, like there were, stakers, there were integrators, there were people who wanted to integrate, there were people who were interested in what we were doing. So for like a bigger protocol like Wormhole, I would assume like doing a booth actually makes a lot of sense. Like hosting like a bigger event makes a lot of sense. I think the question that comes back is like, as a smaller protocol, what would you do? I'm curious to hear Waj's take on all this.
As a smaller protocol, I think often I do see smaller protocols like host events, and I often don't think that they're a good use of funds. I think you're better off using that money and like using it elsewhere. If I'm being honest, just focus on growth. Like the amount of money that I see being spent on some of these side events is enough to hire like 2 more people that can join your team. If you're a small startup with like 5 people, another person can add so much extra value to like your growth for the next year. For me, I think is in general a waste of time. The events that I do like though are the ones, if you are going to host something, are the ones that don't cost a lot of money and like get people to form like strong connections. So something like playing football or maybe a sports event or something like that doesn't cost a lot. There aren't that many overheads. You just turn up and you have a good time and you actually socially interact with those people. Something like that, fine. I think these events where you're hiring a venue and food and all of this stuff, in most cases, especially if you're a small startup with 10 people or less, I didn't see why you would spend so much on it.
Yeah, I think regarding football, Rachit was coaching a team there.
We should
Uh,
change his name to Rashid Messi now.
so, Watch, I think another interesting question for you is as someone building a perps and option protocol on Bear Chain. Do you think Dubai is like the best place for you to meet these trading communities and forming those connections? Is like that is the place for you to host events? Because I see so many traders kind of have their hub in Dubai. Do you think as someone building a perps protocol, that is like your main focus? And if you are going to host an event, host it in some of these conferences in Dubai.
I think Dubai is probably one of the better places. I think it's probably has more ROI than somewhere like Denver. But I think like for every protocol, it's going to be slightly different, right? If you're a specific niche type of trading app, maybe you're better off focusing something in Korea where you have like more derivative traders. Whereas if you're more of a different type of app, somewhere else might work better. So yeah, I don't. The honest answer is I don't know because we didn't host an event, and yeah, I don't think I have any plans to host an event unless the ROI really makes sense. So I'd probably be more interested to hear from the other protocols who did host events and see like how good was the ROI of hosting something, because I'm not sure it's valuable in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like especially for traders, I think people who you're trying to onboard some of the bigger whales who can bring extensive volume to your protocol, and that's like the biggest thing for you. And they kind of bring in more whales, kind of create that network effect. I think that's playing out for some of these trading terminals. But back to the marketing kind of conversation, there were some really cool activations that I saw on timeline, but I want to ask you guys, what are some marketing activations that caught your attention? For me, it was like the Sofon guys. They have done this detox kind of room with the IVs and a robe and kind of cold plunge and everything. What caught your guys' eyes?
I think the football one that I went to was pretty interesting. The Sofon one was also very interesting.
But the
There was a
football
Top
one
Golf one.
is more like a networking thing, right? It's not like activation in terms of getting new users.
Yeah,
I
no,
would imagine.
it was just this. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just this guy that organized like a football meetup.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? The Hyperliquid community organized this Inter Milan versus Barcelona watch party, which I thought was really interesting. That was a cool one. There was a Top Golf event that I thought was pretty
Did
interesting.
you attend the Top Golf event? I had signed up for
No,
one which got
I didn't go to that one, but there was one that I saw photos of, which
canceled.
it was the Tac guys, Marco and the Tac boys
I
hosted it.
had signed up for one
Um,
Top Golf event because I thought that will be like an interesting place to network, but it got cancelled.
yeah, I saw
And
your
watch
tweet
for
about
you.
the Carrot party being
Yeah, the
pretty high
Carrot Age
quality.
party definitely was very high signal. I think they had tweeted, and my friend at Carrot Age told me that they had like more than 2,500 or 3,000 signups.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was like, of course, the capacity was maybe 150 or something, maybe 100. I'm not sure what the exact capacity was, but yeah, I had like 10 friends ping me if you can, ask the organizers to get in, and I was able to like get in like one or two more people because they were being pulled
Yeah.
around by everyone. But I think I had like really interesting conversations at Carrot Age. I bumped into a guy, and we were just talking about random things, and somehow we didn't introduce ourselves in the very first go. I'm like, who you are? And he's like, yeah, I'm the co-founder of Sui. I'm like, so yeah, that was an interesting conversation. And I think the most interesting thing was that I did not have any like mental benchmarks in terms of who am I talking to. But then you realize, okay, this guy is like the co-founder of Sui. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
And Raj?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I like these smaller events where you have the chance to make higher quality connections. I did go to the Top Golf one. I thought it was really, really good. All founders, all from different protocols and from different ecosystems, because like often what you find is if you go to like an ecosystem event, you might know all of the protocols there already, so you're there for socializing. You're not really going to get much value out of it. But when you have a cross event like this, where you have some Bitcoin stuff, some DeFi stuff, some other ecosystems, then you will meet some people. And so yeah, I think things like that are nice. The football ones as well, I think were great. And then I think like the dinners as well, I think they're also great. The dinners that are like up to 30 people, I think those are nice. There was one other one that I thought was interesting, which was Shisha DAO, which somehow is a DAO, but again, all high quality founders across all ecosystems. You can really, really high quality events like that. And I think the common thing with all of them is that they're like less than 100 people, all of these events. Those are the ones that I personally found most value from anyway.
No, I think it's very true.
Awesome.
You can only have like good quality conversations. You end up having a lot of good quality conversations if it's like a group of 20 to 30 people. And I think the other thing that really works in these kind of events is if the organizer is usually active enough to introduce people. So, we have done a lot of brunches where we invite just 40 people or have a maximum capacity of 50. And given that if we are hosting, we are most likely know like 90% of the people are there, and we know what kind of like who we should introduce to which person so that they kind of have advantage of talking to. So we typically have portfolio companies come in, and then we know that our portfolio should be talking to this individual. So if the organizer makes a lot of these introductions, that also helps a lot.
Awesome. That's something I'll definitely remember next time I'll go. Uh, awesome. I think the next thing for our audience that probably are more would want to know more about this is what are some of the key narratives people are talking about or more bullish about? Is it still the L1 trade, or is it still are people focused on AI again, AI agents again? Is the AI trade still alive? Is stablecoins the next big thing? I mean, everyone agrees on it, but there's no way to actually bet on it. So what's like the reality on ground?
Something interesting that I was having a conversation with a lot of people, including you as well, Ratchet, was the idea that actually there isn't that much to be bullish on at all. Maybe Bitcoin, sure, but other than that, not really much. You've got a few consensus trades like Hyperliquid, Hype. But we had a lot of discussions about whether or not anyone should even be launching tokens anymore, and the kind of models that startups can use that maybe have tokens, but more like kind of equity kind of based models as well, futurarchy and a few other kind of types of models. I had a lot of conversations with founders, pre-TGE founders as well, who are all thinking like on this kind of domain as well. So yeah, I don't know what your guys' experience was in terms of this, but yeah, in general, I'd say there wasn't really many tokens that I think we were speaking about that we were all unanimously bullish on. You had the odd person here and there that would come and be like, oh yeah, I'm still bullish on Sui or Solana or stuff like that. I think a lot of people are bullish on Hype. And everyone seems to be bullish on Bitcoin, but I think other than that, I didn't really have anything in my network that people were really like, oh yeah, we're bidding this. And so a lot of the discussions were, what are the alternatives and what are some of the other kind of vehicles that people can kind of get exposure to crypto, but still like, not be buying these worthless tokens.
That feels like alt season soon. Raghav, what about you?
No, I think Waj has very rightly pointed out that there's a very strong consensus that BTC, like Bitcoin, is moving away from this ecosystem in its own kind of a niche, and then Hyperliquid, of course, is emerging as one of the only decentralized applications which can kind of compete with decentralized exchanges in the long run. And I think everyone that I've spoken to, I don't think I've come across anyone who's like bearish on Hyperliquid. Like they might have some concerns or criticism about decentralization, but they do feel that overall the project will likely address those in the long run and it will continue to do good. So I think that's a very consensus thing that Bitcoin and Hyperliquid are likely to do really, really well in the long run. I think there's definitely a shift in the mindset in terms of how you want to build businesses. So rather than just simply launching tokens, we are definitely seeing more projects kind of take a fintech or a Web 2.5-ish kind of approach where they're leveraging stablecoins behind the scene to simplify things, to bring more efficiency, but they may not have a token themselves. We're seeing new kind of applications like peer-to-peer payment solutions being built, which necessarily are not thinking about token at the moment. They just want to get users and build out, get some PMF. So I think there's definitely a shift in terms of launching a token is not the key. In terms of the narrative, I think I strongly believe there's still a lot of innovation happening in the AI space, and there was enthusiasm in developers on the AI side. And you could categorize them into two categories. One is leveraging AI to improve the experience in Web3. So for example, you're just using AI to get better insights, to do better research, or you're building an AI agent which can trade on behalf of the users. So AI and DeFi, that there's a whole vertical emerging that's still making a lot of progress. And I think given that in blockchain you have like set rules and set smart contracts, AI and there's more determinism, and AI could do really, really well in terms of simplifying the user experience. The other aspect is like how decentralization can help AI. So for example, what Grass did, data scraping has existed for a long time, but the way Grass leverages it's like a decentralized way, where decentralization is actually an enabler rather than primarily based on the ethos of what we want to do. Similarly, we've seen that play out for io.net or Aether, and we are now seeing some names like Prime Intellect, News Research. Of course, these are still early stage, but there was definitely some excitement around these. So I would say AI is definitely one area, stablecoins. And I think one other area that's getting a lot of attention, at least from builders right now, is yield through real world assets. Now it could be treasury yield is more or less very common by now, but there are teams working on public equity, private credit, tokenizing all of those things. I think there's a definitely consensus that tokenizing real estate is very far away and involves a lot of challenges, but there is a category of real world assets tokenization where
Yeah.
a lot of builders are extremely bullish.
Yeah, I think the real world assets bringing on chain, the private credit conversation is kind of heating up, I believe. And Rachit, I think Wormhole is also playing a big role there. So maybe what are your thoughts on the RWA scene and in general, your favorite narratives with the people you talk to?
Yeah. Okay, so before I talk about RWAs, I was hoping Raghav would talk about virtuals, but he didn't. So at the start of the conference, virtuals was at like it basically pumped
I,
80% through the
I think
week.
I've spoken
KG.
so much about virtuals now. I thought you'll just stop me that don't talk about virtuals anymore.
No, no, no. So KG,
Bro,
basically what happened was,
you
yeah,
you
go.
mentioned it, yeah, you mentioned it yesterday, and I think it's down 25%.
Oh, it's down. Okay, so basically during the whole conference week, it actually pumped 80%. So like every day when you meet new people and
More.
you
I
talk
think,
about
I think when the
virtuals,
conference started, it was somewhere around at 500 million FDV. And
probably.
right when the
Yeah,
conference ended, it
it
was 7
pumped a
million.
shit ton. And then
Yeah.
like
The
like
best
I was
performing token.
basically yeah, I was basically having dinner with like the same folks at this conference, and like every night their perspective on virtuals would change based on how much it pumped. And then eventually they're like, yeah, this AI thing works. And then virtuals actually, I think they had like this meetup or something, and like it had a huge shot. So the alpha here is if you can make your token pump during conference week, like it's actually bullish leading up to your event. Um, okay, so the AI stuff is cool. I think Hyperliquid, Waj and Raghav both talked
I'll
about it.
just add one thing, Richard. I in fact tweeted this today. That what people may say is that virtuals is not purely pumping because it's an AI launchpad or anything. The most impressive thing about virtuals team right now is, they went to 5 billion at all time high. There was a lot of criticism, around how a lot of teams without utility launching agents and how retail is being used in exit liquidity and all of those. And it's not like they just exited, made money and went away. They sat in a room and decided, okay, here are the challenges, how we need to solve. They came up with this Genesis launch. They came up with the points program. And the points program was launched a few days ago. But if you look at just the Twitter of both the founders of Virtuals, you'll see on a very daily basis they're getting feedback as to how the points are being misused, and they're changing that on a very, very regular basis. So I think Virtuals is a team which is succeeding because it is taking so much customer feedback and iterating so quickly that their community feels bullish that our voice is being heard, the founders are delivering, and along with the products, they're continuously iterating. I think that's what make Virtual stand out right now in the market.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think to an extent, Hyperliquid's done the same thing. The one thing that was really weird, like feedback from Hyperliquid builders themselves, apparently there's just like this one person that helps out with like any sort of support in the Hyperliquid ecosystem. The team doesn't interact with any of the ecosystem teams, which was really weird because you still see this whole enthusiasm of ecosystem projects wanting to build on Hyperliquid. The other thing that I thought was really interesting this time, someone actually pitched to me the entire like broader thesis for Hyperliquid. It's not it's not just that they're like it's like the best perp techs, or there's like this HLP model, or there's like their own market maker. So the model that that person pitched to me was, think about idle capital in crypto. Okay. If you think about the biggest whales, the plays that they want to play are either looping staked ETH and maximizing yield based on staked ETH, or they want to play arbitrage opportunities between spot and futures, or spot on sexes and spot on dexes. Basically, they just want to figure out arbitrage opportunities. Now, Hyperliquid, the way that it's forming out and the way that the perp text is figuring out, you already see all these teams having the perp angle on Hyperliquid. Now, if you actually build Hyper EVM and you have Hypercore and you have that whole mechanism, you will actually see all idle capital go to Hyperliquid because you can avail all of the arbitrage opportunities that you want in one ecosystem. I thought that was mind blowing, and like it just made me insanely bullish on Hyperliquid. Like so far, I just thought about it as like a perp text with an L2, and that was bullish. Like since they were generating revenue, once you sort of think about the broader thesis that they have, I think it's just like unbelievable how they're thinking about it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think all three of you said that Hyperliquid is like a consensus trade. I feel the opposite because uh, there's this new ecosystem growing, but when you look at the numbers, like the number of wallet addresses actually interacting, it's not that many when you compare it to some of the other ecosystems that people are trying to farm. So it just shows that the signal is there, but people are not really built into the ecosystem, and they're not actually depositing assets and checking out different things where everyone is FOMOing in.
Brother,
I don't
there,
think that's
there was KG, there was a paid event for Hyperliquid that 400 people went to.
no, I agree. All those guys are
But his
people.
argument is that there is hype, but the user activity is not that good, is what KG is
Yeah,
arguing.
yeah. So
I
all
would say
the
it's a
giga
volume play.
no, what I'm saying is all the giga players, whales, are built into the Hyperliquid. They're on the bandwagon and they're riding the, like, they believe $100 hype kind of thesis and all. But the people actually interacting with new apps and actually talking about it is still not there yet. It hasn't hit escape velocity yet. So that's why I don't think it's consensus play yet.
But
Like how
I think the
some
reason for that, there's a reason for it. And the reason for it is because the main USP about being on Hyperliquid is that you connect to the Hyperliquid core, Hypercore, through pre-compilers. But that isn't live yet. So people are positioning themselves and getting themselves ready for this huge integration where, let's say, an app like ourselves, we're doing options, right? Imagine we can directly connect to the order book and market make our options through the HL core. We can't do that right now, but like I think apps are positioning for this for when it does go live and when people can use it. Because yeah, I completely agree. Right now, the Hyper EVM is just like any other EVM. You know, there's your standard dexes, your standard lending markets. There isn't anything interesting. But the main USP for the Hyper EVM is what you can do with the main order book itself. So my personal thought is, yeah, I completely agree that right now it's not like that, but it won't be like that once the main USP goes live.
yeah, agree. And
And
I
if you
think
look at numbers, like if you just go on DeFi Llama right now, look at the perps volume, the 24-hour
yeah,
volume. Hyperliquid is at number one with 5.2 billion. The second one
they
is
have
Jupiter with 670 million. So, just in the decentralized perp exchanges, if you look at the gap between number one and number two, it's like huge. The other thing
I
is,
think
which people excited, is this was the first time you saw a centralized exchange kind of attack a protocol, like when the jelly thing was happening, like Binance and OKX kind of listed those perps or spot, I don't recall, like they listed pretty
perps.
fairly quickly. And yeah, when Bybit faced challenges, all the exchanges kind of came in support and offered support, but in this case they were actually trying to you know attack. So yeah, it's like a statement that this is the very first time that centralized exchanges are feeling threatened to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think what's more interesting is if you look at the monthly volume, I think I recently saw that they have done 175 billion plus every month in the last 3 or 4 months since the airdrop, which is pretty bullish, right? Like so bullish that even after the airdrop, they have made generational wealth. People are sticking to the product, and it's continuing to grow. So that volume number is so huge, and it'll only attract more players, right? They'll have a new points program going live soon, and all these apps going to come live, and the spot market is still very new. We don't even have that many pairs yet, so it's just going to keep going up. So super interesting. And another angle for the same question is, what is something people are not talking about on CT but are really bullish when you talk to different people at the event?
Just on one last note on perps in general, one thing that I noted in Dubai was there were two competitors that people were really talking about a lot. I wouldn't say necessarily that they're going to take Hyperliquid's share anytime soon, but there are a lot of noise around it, and one of them is Lighter, who are also kind of playing the same playbook, and I think eventually will go down the chain route as well. And the other one being Ostium, two of which that I think CT, maybe isn't talking about that much just yet. But I had lots of conversations with smart people who are really bullish on them.
Yeah, regarding that, like I think Lighter right now, I think someone had done the numbers on this. They're like someone is projecting $10 per point. I don't know, but I think it's very limited spots right now for people to actually farm
Bro,
that.
did you see that tweet? Like there was this person that tweeted out like lighter intern got drunk at a party and said $100 a point. Uh, yeah, that was so funny. Um,
Yeah, I think like people are so many. I think Jazz and some other big traders are really pushing it, and the points program is relatively new. I had tried it out. I think even you can put on big positions. It's zero fees, right? Like many people are saying people are just wash trading, but I don't think that's true. But it's zero fees. I think you can farm it. And on Ostium, I think you can't play with big size because there's no liquidity that much there. But they have some playing S&P 500 on, we have seen the last month the volatility. Playing that volatility on perps is very value add for so many traders. So definitely something to look forward to. Rashid, you want to say something?
no, the only other thing I wanted to say about the last conversation was the fact. So Hyperliquid announced this thing where you have to stake 1 million hype to get your perp market. I think every layer one or layer two that's raising has to add $20 million to their raise amount, and they need to hold that much amount in hype if they want a day one perp listing on Hyperliquid, which all of them do want. So I thought that was really interesting. Also, something to be bullish on Hyperliquid about.
Awesome. As we are into the markets kind of conversation, Raghav, from your venture angle, what are liquid funds mainly allocating right now? I know that so many are bullish on DeFi, AI. So many I've seen on timeline over the last couple of months. Everyone is bullish on Aave, which made perfect sense. And you said that people are again focusing on like boring businesses that actually make revenue. In your conversations, what are liquid funds actually allocating in this market?
Hyperliquid, I think that's. I don't come from we don't run a liquid fund so long as is a VC only. But based on my conversations, I think across all liquid funds, every liquid fund kind of tried to accumulate Hyperliquid, especially after the Jelly when they thought the market is overreacting to a particular news and they still felt bullish about that protocol. So I think that's like the consensus trade across all liquid investors that I chatted to. And then other than that, I think there's certain level of excitement around a few sectors like AI, even deep and in DeFi as well. But I think it's very clear that we don't expect the rising tide to lift all boats. Like even if there's quantitative easing, if there's a lot of liquidity flowing back into the ecosystem, most people expect, and that's my view as well, that we should not expect every token to kind of appreciate in value like we have seen in the previous cycles. So yeah, teams are being selective, and they're looking at teams which are generating revenue, capturing market share, or have something which is really bullish for the future. I think one interesting observation was a friend of mine hosted an event where they had invited all the liquid funds, and they had invited projects which have a live token, and hosted like an event where they had like 30 minutes one-on-one meeting, and it went what for like 4 hours. So as a liquid fund, you come in, you have 8 back-to-back meetings with projects which have live token, and mostly the founders or the founding team members came and they pitched why they should buy their token right now, or what are the upcoming updates. I think this is like a TradFi kind of event where in TradFi you have earnings call, and the team is giving out updates and the analysts are asking questions. I think this was definitely a positive development, that more information in a better manner is being communicated to these liquid funds so that they can position themselves accordingly.
Yeah. KG, all liquid funds are wrecked, by the way. So this is basically
Not all.
I spoke to a lot of almost. So what I've heard is there's only a couple of liquid funds that have made money. The top return that a liquid fund has had this cycle is about 3x. Everyone else is in like this 40 to 120% returns range, and all of their returns have come from Bitcoin. So they hold Bitcoin and then they hold all these alts that have gone down. They've tried to make money on like AI silly season and meme coin season, which hasn't worked out. So all these liquid funds are now trying to get yield on their Bitcoin, which is something that they're really trying to figure out, because you cannot have native yield on Bitcoin, right? Because it doesn't exist. So they're trying to figure out like this maple sort of play where they can earn like yield on their Bitcoin, whatever. The second thing that liquid funds are, yeah, Carter.
No, I was just curious. Like I remember reading like someone had raised like a meme coin specific fund, like a liquid fund just for meme coins. Do you know how is that performing, or like how that is progressing?
I mean, me,
They have
me and
already.
KG both have meme coin funds. We're close to zero. Waj, how's your meme coin portfolio doing?
Let's not talk about it.
But yeah, so liquid funds are also slowing down on the OTC side. That's something that they don't want to interact with anymore. Apparently, the OTC trade, where you can buy discount OTC, short it, and then make the premium, is not working out because the teams are double farming those projects, which I thought was really weird. Which
So what do
also
you mean?
raised a lot of questions. So imagine you're a liquid fund and you engage in an
Yeah,
OTC deal where it's like 30% discount over
then you
6 months.
right.
Yeah, you short it, you basically make 30%. But then there are instances where the OTC provider is working with the market maker, and then they're sort of, it goes up and then you get liquidated.
Yeah, then,
I heard a lot of liquid funds talk about how they were in a situation where their shorts got liquidated and they weren't really happy with that situation, which is why
Currency.
they've gone away which is why they've gone away from OTC markets altogether. Which also, like, I had a lot of conversations about neutral. They're essentially doing this on chain and they're going to be public. Like, at least this neutral was mentioned in at least 5 different conversations on 5 different nights for me. And everyone that I talked to, like every liquid fund is bullish on these guys. So I thought that was really interesting. And that's sort of the funds
but
side.
if liquid funds are not able to make money on this trade, how would neutral make money on this trade, or why are they bullish on
That's what
neutral?
everyone was asking. And so the
Yeah.
question is like, will neutral actually disclose that this is the OTC that they're buying and this is the round details? Because if they disclose it, then it sort of becomes more weird. Um,
Yeah, I mean, a
Yeah.
yeah,
social coordinated attack is possible in case what's the short position, what's the liquidation
yeah.
price.
And also, I
Yeah.
think I saw someone on Twitter the other day talking about another risk vector is the peg of their stable coin can easily kind of go south so easily
Oh no, no. So
that
KG, it's not a stable coin. So does just think of it as like a bond. It's a bond product.
yeah, yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
yeah.
that's what they need to make it not to a dollar, but less than that, like 70 or 80 cents. So many, it's like very complicated, but I think we're gonna have them soon in the pod as well. So no one is buying my fart coin back then.
Fartcoin actually, people are actually still bullish on Fartcoin. Uh,
Yeah, that's what
I
word
think
as
I
well.
talked to Vaj about this. Yeah.
Yeah, in general though, I didn't have that many convos about Fartcoin. Like I'd say like maybe a month ago, like everyone was talking about it. Maybe even on CTs, people are still talking about it. In person though, not many people mentioned it to me, which was surprising, I guess.
Yeah, we have dip feeler on our side pumping our bags, but let's see what happens. Uh, all right, I think we covered a lot of ground here, but I want to also talk about ETH and what's happening with Ethereum right now. A lot has happened over the last 1 or 2 years with ETH in terms of sentiment, price, the asset, and we have new Petra upgrade also live. What do you guys think is the sentiment of Ethereum right now? Is the comeback arc from going like up only from here? What are your guys' thoughts on Ethereum? Rashid? Yeah, anyone can go.
I think I actually have no thoughts on this topic. So I'll let Raghav and Vaj read it.
I had a lot of positive conversations with people about the new upgrade and kind of how it's going to improve UX, account abstraction, gas sponsorship, all of these other kind of elements, which I think will make the user experience much better. A lot of it comes down to the wallet infrastructure providers to kind of get this set up quickly, so that whether you're using MetaMask or Rabi or what Phantom or whatever wallet you use, we can start using these features as soon as possible. So I think like sentiment was pretty good around that and how builders can use these different features in their apps to make it better. But I think that's completely different to ETH the asset, which in my opinion is cooked and still is cooked. A lot of the traders that I spoke to were talking about buying ETH sub $1,000, and anything above that is expensive. So yeah, and to be fair, I don't necessarily see what the bullish catalyst for ETH the asset is right now. Whilst I'm still bullish on Ethereum, EVM, and kind of where that is going. When you look at the valuation of ETH, even at let's say $2,000, the FDV is still massive compared to Solana, some of these other chains as well. And I think, but it probably still deserves to be like that for now. But I don't necessarily see what the bull case is for ETH to go back to 4K, which it was just a few months ago. Very
Yeah,
very hard to see that right now.
yeah. Raghav, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Vaj covered quite a lot, but just covering the aspects which were not covered. There's a huge difference in how developers in the Solana ecosystem feel about Solana and how developers in the Ethereum ecosystem. So if you're an app developer in Solana, you know for a fact that you will, you can get support either from Super Team, you can participate in Coliseum. There are dedicated VCs from the Solana ecosystem which will support you. There are dedicated mentors, advisors. You're likely to even get a lot of support or potentially investment from Solana Foundation itself, or you could get an angel check from the Solana founders itself. I mean, that ecosystem is like very good in terms of uh, supporting application developers. If you kind of compare that with the Ethereum ecosystem, I think Ethereum Foundation is heavily focused on like R&D. It's more academic. It's not involved in day-to-day advising or supporting. Not even necessary advising, but more like supporting or championing applications within that ecosystem. In fact, the sentiment that I gathered, a few of the senior or like OG founders in the space mentioned that at times projects feel kind of criticized or threatened by EF. For example, when Lido was growing, there were a lot of EF researchers asking Lido to self-impose a cap on the staking. Similarly, we have seen some sort of criticism from Optimism, Arbitrum, and of course, this is like a permissionless and open space, and everyone is entitled to their views. Like Ethereum Foundation is not officially making any statement against any project, But you can definitely see that culture in the Solana ecosystem where everyone gets super excited about the foundation, the team. They feel that they have a strong backing behind them, and the Ethereum Foundation kind of feels. So I think that's one area that should definitely be addressed, regardless of whether you bring account abstraction, gas abstraction. You can do away with the EVM or bring in any new VM, whatever. But I think now that the focus from we are hearing from Vitalik or from EF is that make L1 scalable, make it great. I think there's no point in making that great if you do not have a very, very strong and motivated developers who are building applications out there. And it's a consensus. You see, all these successful projects, be it Hyperliquid, be it Athena, they first built an app, and once they had a PMF or even Uniswap, like you build an application, you get users, and then you kind of launch chain. And you talk to any of the rollup as a service or a DLA, they can tell you there's no demand for new L2s right now. And if you have to scale the L1, my gut feeling is that you really need to work on activating the app developer ecosystem.
Awesome. Yeah, I think
KG, one
it's
thing to also note there is Token 2049 is not a very technical conference. It's very institutional VCs. So, while you typically have like, is the roll-up centric roadmap good for Ethereum? Like there'll always be a panel. At Token, there were no such panels. So this whole conversation around ETH's roadmap was not there. The one thing, so I started interacting with a lot of restaking players, and a lot of them were bullish on Symbiotic. And I was sort of understanding that thesis. What they told me was ETH's price shot up last year or whenever it shot up to 4K, like Waj mentioned. It was a supply demand mechanism because everyone was farming these staking protocols, which is why ETH was going up. There's no incentive for you to buy ETH right now because there is no loop mechanism like that. So that's how they feel about ETH price overall.
yeah, and also like Eigenlayer played a big role in that, and everyone was bullish on that, like kind of that reshare security, that aspect. I don't think people are really that high on that right now. But and also like these upcoming new L1s will give their will be more make it more competitive for Ethereum, like Mega ETH and Monad. What are you guys' thoughts on those newer ecosystems? There's like a lot of hype to these two big chains that are going to go live soon. How has sentiment been for Monad launching soon and also hype Mega ETH kind of having these really, really novel apps like noise and really
What's really
cool
interesting,
things they're
KG?
building?
I actually thought Plasma was the most hyped ecosystem at Token.
Yeah, I was going to
Like,
say
I don't know what you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Sorry to interrupt there, but yeah.
No, go for it. No, I want you to take over.
No, yeah, I agree. Plasma, everyone has been talking about, like so many people, and I got to meet some of the core team there as well, which is really cool. I hardly heard anyone talking about Monad or maybe a few people talking about Mega ETH. I think there's something interesting there. But yeah, Plasma was definitely like one of the chains. Initia as well was also in a lot of discussions as well. It looks like they've got something interesting with incentives there. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think Berachain's still in the discussion with many people as well. Let's see kind of what happens now post Boyko and kind of how POL looks. But I think, like, yeah, I completely agree. Plasma was really interesting, especially just because one thing that they're doing is they're not trying to grow a huge ecosystem of thousands of apps, right? They're going to go for 2 or 3 apps, 2 or 3 killer apps in each subsector of stablecoins or like, yeah, so something could be payments related. There could be another thing for something else, but only 2 or 3 apps. So yeah, I think that's going to be really, really interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, lots of people were talking about that.
I think the most talked about chain in my experience was movement. I think.
Oh yeah, not for the right reasons.
Not for the right reasons, of course, but yeah, I think movement definitely was talk of the town. And because of movement, I think there was a lot of conversations around market making. Like there was definitely, people have started asking questions. What's the role of a market maker? How do you select market maker? What kind of questions do you ask to market makers? So yeah, I think even more than Plasma, I heard movement everywhere. Yeah,
I think KG. I think if you went to Token 2049, you would come out as like a market maker expert. That's like the key takeaway. Like everyone is a market maker expert right now. Like do this, do that, don't do this.
The most interesting thing every market maker that I met, I asked them what happened with the mantra and what happened with the movement, because the CoinDesk article and all the emails and everything came out during the conference. So anyone who was not a market maker had a very clear view, and all the market makers were like, this information is not enough to have a very clear view, but this is what our intuitive understanding is.
You know what?
That's pretty interesting.
My interface with people who do BD for market makers also like 100% low. Like I just met like a couple of people here and there, which was also interesting. Yeah, KG, I think we're closing off on the hour. One thing that I also want to mention that was a key takeaway for me in this whole conversation around revenue and projects needing to get revenue. There's a lot of players who are facilitating mergers and acquisitions in crypto, and you'll probably see a lot of non-token revenue generating projects get acquired by bigger projects who have tokens who want to have some sort of revenue. Yeah, no, I mean that was like my biggest takeaway from token. I think we can end it up there. Like, what's your biggest takeaway from Token 2049, guys?
Good question. Good question.
Long
my-
Hyperliquid.
yeah, long, long hype, short ETH. No. I think honestly, like one of the things that I love most about conferences is like we sit behind our screens all day. We're in meetings all day. But like there's something different about meeting people in person, and I think like that's always like one of my favorite things about coming to these places. Even you and me kind of sitting till 3 o'clock in the morning, talking with our friends about all kinds of stuff. There's something special about that. So yeah, my takeaway is enjoy those times because they're some of the best moments for me anyway.
Awesome. Raghav, close it out.
Yeah, I think my key takeaway is that we need to as an industry, we need to step up and bring in more, non-Web3 folks to conferences and figure out how we can use them at least to onboard a few people every time, we are flying people out to a particular city.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. This is amazing. And also, what's the next event you're going to be at?
TBD. I'm not sure.
Right. Don't know. Oh, last thing that I do want to mention, I don't know why Waj didn't talk about this, but everyone who has anything on Bearchain is farming infrared. So there's probably alpha there somewhere. Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Peace.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.